They said it was impossible that artificial intelligence could ever align with a planet-friendly future. Yet here we are, with one of the most influential tech giants claiming they have found the path to making AI work hand in hand with clean energy, all the while navigating a web of setbacks and breakthroughs. So, what is really going on behind those closed data center doors? And how does it all tie into humanity's ongoing quest to tackle climate change? Today, we are diving deep into the dramatic story unfolding as Google races toward an ambitious clean energy goal while simultaneously ramping up the demands of AI in ways few ever anticipated. In this episode, we will uncover exactly how Google's data center emissions managed to drop despite skyrocketing electricity usage. We will pull back the curtain on the game-changing deals that secured an astonishing amount of renewable energy capacity, and we will examine why some regions, especially in areas like Asia, are still lagging perilously behind. Along the way, we will trace the intriguing steps Google is taking to wrangle and refine heavy-hitting sources like geothermal and small modular nuclear reactors. Could these next-generation power solutions slam the brakes on AI's surging energy demands? Or are we teetering on the brink of pushing our planet too far? Prepare yourselves for a roller coaster ride through corporate ambitions, ethical dilemmas, and the pure drama of a race against time. So, what makes Google's recent environmental progress both admirable and unsettling at the same time? To begin with, the company's newly released environmental report for its 10th anniversary set some eyes popping. It boasts a drop in data center emissions that hovers around 12%. And that is no small feat. At the same time, the overall electricity use for those bustling data centers soared by an incredible 27%. Picture massive server halls buzzing with constant number crunching, trying to feed the unquenchable thirst of artificial intelligence. These are the same AI systems churning through data at speeds unimaginable just a handful of years ago, all while the rest of the world attempts to figure out how to curb the looming climate crisis. When it comes to contracting new sources of energy, Google appears to have gone all out. According to its newest data, the company signed on for an astounding 8 gigawatts of additional clean energy capacity in just the last year, bolstering what was already one of the largest portfolios in tech. And here is a fact that made observers do a double take. 2.5 gigawatts from previously inked contracts started funneling electricity into Google's global operations in the past year. It is one thing to project a green future by signing a piece of paper, but it is another to actually hook those deals into the grid and watch them power the lion's share of your operations. The company stands tall in pointing out that 9 of its grid regions cross the remarkable threshold of hitting at least 80% carbon-free electricity. That is a major step, yet it remains just part of the story. Zoom out, and you see that the global average still lingers somewhere around 66%. Critics have latched onto that gap, claiming it reveals the difficulties of scaling such an ambitious plan. Meanwhile, Asia-Pacific remains a thorn in the side of these big breakthrough numbers, with a mere 12% of electricity matched by renewable energy. It is a snapshot of Google's global challenge. How can you claim consistent progress in markets where the foundational infrastructure is not set up to support large amounts of renewable investments, or lacks the political will to pivot away from fossil fuels? At the core of this entire conversation sits artificial intelligence itself. Many observers question whether AI is the culprit behind ballooning power demands, or if it is merely the future of technology forging ahead. On one hand, Google points to innovative strides, like its newest chip designs that are said to be 30 times more power efficient than versions from a few years back. This means that the leaps in hardware efficiency are trying to keep pace with AI's relentless momentum. On the other hand, the bigger question remains: will even the most sophisticated chips be enough to offset the insane growth we are seeing in real-time data crunching? Before we start unraveling that question, here is a quick call to action. If you are intrigued by the high-stakes world of rapid innovation colliding with urgent climate pressures, consider showing your support. Go ahead and let us know you want more insights, because every bit of feedback helps us keep the conversation fresh and relevant. Thank you for being here. Now, let us pivot to the paradox at the heart of Google's latest revelations. Even as the company focuses fiercely on cutting its operational emissions, it faces a reality where its total climate impact actually rose in 2024. How can that be? One major reason concerns the dramatic expansion of infrastructure. Giant new campuses, data centers in emerging markets, and upgraded server farms do not just appear out of thin air. They require massive manufacturing processes, shipping, building materials, and a chain of suppliers who may not be bound by the same green commitments that Google tries to uphold. In technical terms, these are Scope 3 emissions, indirect emissions that occur outside the immediate boundaries of the company's operations, but can be traced back to the brand's activities. And in the last year alone, these Scope 3 emissions shot up by 22%. Here is where many point to a volcanic undercurrent of tension. Google's dream is to create an AI utopia where the machines run on squeaky clean power, but the cost to build that dream is riddled with greenhouse gas footprints from corners of the world that may have minimal regulations or limited renewables. Add in the demands of certain third-party operations, manufacturing partners, and the use of heavy construction to accelerate expansions, such as new office complexes or advanced robotics labs, and you get a scenario that is anything but black and white. Let us return to Asia for a moment. The stagnation in renewable matching in that part of the world is not just a detail, it is a signal flare indicating how tough this puzzle remains. For Google, capturing more market share often means engaging in regions still heavily reliant on fossil-powered grids. In those places, developing large-scale renewable infrastructure from scratch is no small feat. It can involve intricate procurement deals, local policy negotiations, and even the cultural acceptance of what going green entails. As a result, Google has begun dropping hints that it might turn to more avant-garde solutions. Geothermal has been on the company's radar for some time now, promising a baseload power supply that can run day and night without the variability of solar or wind. Rumble further into the rumor mill, and you find talk of small modular nuclear reactors, technology that aims to deliver nuclear power more flexibly and perhaps with fewer safety complications than conventional nuclear plants. While nuclear is a divisive topic for environmentalists, it may be the critical puzzle piece if the world is serious about zero-carbon baseload power for AI's blossoming demands. Speaking of demands, data centers are already an enormous drain not just on electricity, but also on water resources. Situated in states like Nevada or communities with fragile water supplies, data centers are drawing increased scrutiny. They require enormous volumes of water to cool rows upon rows of servers, and that demand only intensifies as computing loads grow. Experts are clamoring for a more transparent accounting of how much water an AI-driven data center might need, especially in drought-prone regions. After all, saving the planet's atmosphere is one piece of the puzzle. Saving its water supply is another. Meanwhile, Chief Sustainability Officer Kate Brandt has become a pivotal figure. She leads the charge in encouraging suppliers to source carbon-free energy themselves, effectively extending the idea of corporate responsibility beyond the walls of Google's own facilities. But questions abound. How can Google persuade these suppliers, scattered around the world, to embrace greener energy solutions if the local grid is not aligned to begin with? And more importantly, how can you track or ensure accountability among dozens, if not hundreds, of diverse partners? The company is already walking a tightrope, balancing the demands of a green brand image with the realities of doing business on a global scale. That leads us to the next major point. How does any of this matter to everyday people, especially those who do not work in the tech sector? Well, consider this. Artificial intelligence has a way of seeping into almost everything, from the way we conduct online searches to how we travel, eat, and connect on social media. Every time you ask your smartphone's virtual assistant to give you directions or translate a phrase, you are tapping into AI that sits in a data center somewhere, spinning up compute cycles that devour electricity. Multiply that by billions of users around the planet, and you start to see why this is not just a corporate issue. It is our collective issue, enmeshed in how we live, communicate, and function. It is worth remembering that Microsoft, Meta, and other tech giants are racing on parallel tracks. They face many of the same conundrums: unstoppable AI expansions, enormous resource consumption, and the urgent moral imperative to rein in climate change. Public skepticism thrives in the face of these brand narratives. Are these corporations truly pivoting toward a net zero future out of concern for the Earth? Or are they simply in damage control mode to avoid negative press? And if some level of cynicism is warranted, is there at least a slice of genuine dedication shining through? These complicated dynamics have led to a wave of new environmental strategies. Offsets, for instance, remain a hotly debated topic. Microsoft apparently invests in rainforest conservation, while Google invests in wind and solar farms. But do these schemes truly neutralize the environmental toll, or are they glorified band-aids that allow companies to expand without feeling too guilty? The debate is nowhere near settled. Now, for a second subtle call to action. If you have made it this far and are resonating with the depths of this conversation, consider lending your voice to this dialogue. Share your thoughts, share this story, or follow along so you do not miss the next deep dive into the intersection of technology and our planet's well-being. Every comment or share helps keep crucial subject matter front and center. Shifting gears, let us examine some of the bold claims about how these new environmental strategies actually translate into everyday infrastructure. According to the latest insights, Google's most efficient hardware designs are about 30 times more power conscious than older versions. That is spectacular if you assume a linear growth in AI computations. Still, AI's hunger does not grow in a linear manner. It is more akin to an exponential balloon, swelling at a pace that can blow right past any hardware efficiency gains. That is precisely why the company is not just fiddling with chip design, but also looking for large-scale transformations in how entire data centers get powered, cooled, and integrated into local grids. Load shifting is one of those transformations. Instead of running systems at maximum capacity in a single data center location, Google aims to shuffle tasks around to regions where renewable energy is more abundant. For instance, if the sun is blazing in a certain location, Google might route computational tasks there. When night falls, it might shift the load to a data center in a region where wind energy is peaking. On paper, it sounds brilliant, making use of real-time variations in renewable availability. But implementing such a global balancing act draws in a fresh set of technical challenges: network latencies, local regulations, power grid cooperation, and ensuring that corporate clients who pay for cloud services do not see performance hiccups. As we peel back more layers, we unearth further challenges. Scope 3 emissions remain a formidable foe. Even if Google manages to run its own operations on near carbon-free energy, the practical supply chain extends to manufacturers building server components, shipping companies delivering them, and disposal or recycling services at the end of each device's lifecycle. For a moment, imagine thousands of servers being replaced every few years to keep pace with AI's accelerating performance demands. The ripple effect of that hardware turnover is monumental. If the factories producing these server components burn coal for their electricity, you can see how the entire environmental house of cards could topple. Meanwhile, the climate crisis does not stand still. Carbon emissions continue piling up in the atmosphere, and extreme weather events are becoming more frequent. Hurricanes swirl with greater intensity. Wildfires rampage across regions that rarely had them before. Environmental advocates argue that if megacorporations truly cared, they would dial back the scale of AI expansions, not just tweak power usage or shop for renewable deals. But the tech world's argument is that AI can help solve some of the world's greatest challenges, including climate modeling, precision agriculture, and more efficient transportation. So, is AI the villain, or is it a hero in the making? The jury is still out, and the tension makes for a captivating conflict. Within Google's own narrative, there is talk of forging new relationships with local utilities, guiding them to build out the renewable infrastructure needed to supply a more robust, stable flow of clean electricity. This might involve direct investments or co-sponsored initiatives, especially in places like the Asia-Pacific region, where the renewables market has yet to catch fire. There is a sense that Google is increasingly nudging its suppliers, companies that produce everything from networking cables to specialized chips, to adopt green energy in their own operations. The impetus is not just moral, it is also practical. As Google's brand image weaves more tightly with a climate-friendly identity, a major scandal linking the tech giant to dirty energy could degrade the public's trust. But that delicate balance takes us to the role of next-generation energy sources. While solar and wind have matured substantially, the intermittent nature of these sources makes them partial solutions. For data centers running mission-critical processes, reliability can never be in question. Enter geothermal, a steady baseline energy derived from the Earth's own heat. But drilling for geothermal can be expensive, location-specific, and subject to geological surprises like minor earthquakes. Small modular nuclear reactors, on the other hand, present a vision of nuclear power on a more flexible scale, with hopefully fewer safety concerns and a minimized risk of large-scale meltdowns. However, the public's trust in nuclear energy remains shaky, due in large part to historical accidents. If Google jumps into nuclear power procurement, will that spark a wave of acceptance or a backlash that tarnishes the brand's image? This tug of war between the unstoppable rise of AI and the increasingly desperate need to curb emissions feels like a grand narrative that will define the tech era of the next decade. We now stand at a crossroads where corporations like Google can choose the pioneering path of global sustainability or risk being swept into the footnotes of history as a missed opportunity. One cannot ignore the potent symbolism of a massive company touting how many emissions they have helped avoid. Google claims that 5 of its tools saved about 26 million metric tons of emissions in 2024, more than double its operational footprint. That is no small statistic, but the devil is in the details. Where are those avoided emissions measured, and who independently verifies these claims? Also, do these savings remain locked within the boundaries of Google's own products, or do they filter into other sectors, such as agriculture or urban planning? There is also a human layer to this saga. The engineers, policy strategists, and sustainability experts pouring their energy into complicated tasks few have tackled before. The concept of balancing real-time computational workloads with ephemeral gusts of wind or fleeting hours of sunlight is a marvel of modern engineering. Meanwhile, local communities in places like Iowa, Taiwan, or Chile might experience the direct impacts, positive or negative, of Google's expansions. Imagine living next to one of these massive data centers. On the one hand, you might gain job opportunities, local investment, and a place in the cutting edge of technology. On the other, you might see your electricity grid transform, or your water supply adjust in ways that are not always beneficial. The tension is real, and the outcomes can vary widely. Where does that leave us? In a sense, the essence of Google's 2025 environmental report is that progress can happen fast and break records, yet remain uneven and overshadowed by ballooning total emissions. By tightening the focus on their own carbon footprint, forging extensive renewable energy deals, and exploring more avant-garde energy sources, Google chooses to brand itself as an environmental steward. But the colossal size of the company renders that stewardship vulnerable to the weaknesses in supply chains, the energy limitations of certain regions, and the unstoppable avalanche of AI-driven computing demands. Will Google's transition to greener AI end up as a blueprint for the rest of the tech world, or as a cautionary tale? That depends on whether the company can address myriad stumbling blocks, from Scope 3 emissions to water usage, and from Asia-Pacific bottlenecks to global trust in nuclear power. This story is not just about an isolated corporation safeguarding the environment. It is about a broader movement with the power to set a critical precedent in our collective battle against climate disruption. So, as AI rushes into everything from medical diagnostics to self-driving cars, the demand for data center horsepower will only grow. If Google's bet pays off, perhaps we will look back in a few years and say, they cracked the code on making AI truly sustainable. If it falters, the entire industry might pay the price, burdening the world with even higher emissions and fueling climate anxieties. The stakes are quite literally planetary in scale. They revolve around the question, if artificial intelligence continues its rapid ascent, who ensures the planet is able to keep pace? From the vantage point of this latest report, it is clear that the conversation has only just begun. AI can be a sharp two-edged sword, a tool for decarbonizing everything from homes to factories if deployed wisely, but also an energy sinkhole if left unchecked. And amid it all, Google's push to weave sustainability into its AI revolution may define how technology giants navigate moral and reputational hazards in the coming years. It is not just about a single company making lofty pledges. It is about whether our global society can truly innovate fast enough to handle the twin challenges of a booming technological revolution and a planet straining under the weight of centuries of fossil fuel dependence. However things play out, one cannot deny that the stakes are riveting. As we watch, new forms of renewable procurement appear, creative solutions to cooling data centers are tested, and engineers tinker with advanced chips that might stave off the worst of energy surges. The drama is palpable, with tension lines crisscrossing everything from local communities to global supply chains. We are witnessing a defining moment in technology. Will it be an inflection point that propels us into a greener tomorrow, Or will the impulse to push AI forward outrun our ability to keep the planet's resources in harmony? In the end, maybe the question is not just, can Google do it, but can we all find a way to do it together? The labyrinth of challenges demands more than a single hero or a single corporation claiming they have it figured out. It requires shared innovation, government incentives, academic research, and a willingness from consumers everywhere to demand that their online world be powered, quite literally, with minimal cost to the environment. It is a sprawling, interwoven tapestry that might very well define the fate of our species over the next few decades. And as we draw to a close on this eye-opening look at how Google has soared to new clean energy heights while simultaneously wrestling with the monstrous energy appetite of AI, let us all keep questioning, discussing, and insisting on better solutions. The tension might be the only thing that propels us to discover truly sustainable technology. The planet, after all, is not just some footnote in the story of AI's evolution. It is our shared home. Thanks for tuning in and staying with us through this deep exploration into Google's environmental strategies and the rising wave of AI demands. Keep your eyes open for more breakthroughs and more dilemmas on the horizon. The tale is far from finished, and what happens in the next few years could rewrite the very foundations of both the digital age and the planet we call home.